Our planet is changing before our eyes, from the ocean depths to mountain tops.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Nearly half the planet's population is highly vulnerable to climate change.
Impacts of climate change are accelerating, that this is already worse than they thought it was going to be at this point, given the amount of planet warming we have had so far. We're at about 1.1 degrees Celsius of planet warming.
Our rivers are running dry. Our harvests are failing. Our storehouses stand empty.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon.
Welcome to the first episode of Net Earth, a digital series dedicated to climate change, also known as the crisis of the generation. So it makes sense we get on the same page about what it is, not whether or not it's happening. It is. It's a sure science, it's a settled science, it's happening. But what is climate change? Why it's happening? How it happens? When did climate change become a crisis? And where are we already seeing it? Is there any hope at all for change? This is the only Earth we got. And even if we had another one, I'm not sure I'd want to go. So let's talk about it. The terms global warming and climate change are often used interchangeably by the media, which is really where the science begins to get a bit fuzzy. Think of it like this. Global warming is a rise in average temperatures of the world, and climate change is caused due to global warming, among other reasons. It is, as the name suggests, a change in the entire climate, not just temperatures, of different places across the world over a long period of time, at least 30 years. So the argument of not believing in climate change because the daily weather outside the window doesn't seem to be changing just yet, not a very watertight argument. Now, climate change can and does happen naturally because of the sunlight changing or mountains growing or continents moving. Basically stuff that takes hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions. But we have seen climate change in a matter of decades, and scientists say this will only accelerate in the future. Why? This is where global warming comes in. This graph shows carbon dioxide levels in our atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. This spike in the late 1750s happened during the Industrial Revolution, which was the start of our doomed love affair with burning coal, petrol and natural gas. Again, in the 1950s, after World War II, when we reorganized ourselves and accelerated what we call the human enterprise, think motor cars, that was another spike. These 2 points in history are, in many ways, when the climate crisis started. In the last 70 years, our population has tripled. We're burning more fossil fuels than ever. We're also eating more meat products than ever, which releases another gas, methane, into the atmosphere. Here's where it all goes wrong. When energy from the sun hits the earth, a part of it is reflected back into the atmosphere by the climate system. Think oceans, land surfaces, and ice sheets. But gases like carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere create what we call the greenhouse effect. They trap the outgoing heat, re-radiating it back in all directions, including downwards, leading to global warming. Again, the greenhouse effect does happen naturally as levels of these gases fluctuate in our atmosphere due to things like volcanoes erupting or changes in the heat from the sun. In fact, the Earth would be 33 degrees Celsius cooler without the greenhouse effect. So it actually keeps the Earth pretty habitable. So yes, when the climate science deniers say things like global warming is natural or that the greenhouse effect has been happening since day one, they're not entirely wrong. But the difference is how human processes have altered these natural processes since the 1750s and especially since the 1950s.
Over 50% of all our CO2 emissions have occurred since 1990. and about a third since 2005.
We have data to show that in the last 10,000 years, the Earth's carbon dioxide levels have remained fairly stable at around 300 parts per million. This has meant reliable seasons, predictable weather, a period of stability when global average temperatures have fluctuated only by +1 or -1 degree. This benign period is what has made it possible for humans to settle, spread, and build the modern world as we know it. So where are we now? Today, carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere have crossed 419 parts per million, and with higher levels of greenhouse gases, the average global temperatures have increased by 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. Now, this does not mean that everywhere across the planet is getting warmer. In fact, in the short term, some places can and will get cooler. This also does not mean that temperatures are rising across the planet by the same amount across all seasons. For instance, the Arctic is warming 6 times faster than average. All this means is that the average global temperature has increased by 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. Sounds like no biggie, right? 1.2 degrees Celsius in some 200 odd years, and that too not even everywhere. That's where climate change comes in. All this trapped heat energy radiates back and interacts with the Earth's climate system. The vast majority of the heat, about 90%, is stored in the ocean, about 5% is warming the land, and about 2% the atmosphere. The rest, about 3%, melts ice on Earth. And because it's all connected, the ripple effect, the domino effect, the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, that happens. I'll give you an example to demonstrate this and places where we can already see the climate change. In the next episode, I'll explain how the dominoes fall. Even better, I'll lay out for you how ice caps melting in the Arctic are connected to wheat prices in India. And in that process, point to where all on Earth we're already seeing the climate change. If you found value in what you just saw, please share this video far and wide with anyone and everyone you know. Climate change is a conversation we all need to be having outside of our silos. And Net Earth, besides being a primer for all things climate change, is also meant to be a digital space for these conversations. So I urge you, please leave a comment with your questions, your thoughts, any feedback. In the coming weeks, I will also be speaking to some leading experts and having some newsworthy climate conversations with them. So if you have a burning question you want answered or a suggestion for a guest, tell us that too. And don't forget to subscribe to Newsworthy and hit that bell icon. You will get notified every time we upload a new Net Earth video.